Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Valentine's Day edition of the Daily Market Perspective. I am your host, Chuck Fulkerson. Hope everybody has a great day. We are February the 14th, and we're going to do what we do each and every day here on the Daily Market Commentary. Take a look at some awesome opportunities in the markets. Didn't have yesterday's video come out simply because there wasn't a whole lot to do in the evening time, although it looks like we've got a little bit more going on this morning that will give us a little bit of an entry potential and entry opportunities. For those of you new to the channel, thanks for making it in. We do what we do each and every day. We look at the same 10 to 12 futures markets, identifying potential opportunities, but the most important thing is we leave the lines on the charts. And the reason we leave lines on the charts is we want you to see how these trades develop over time. Now, the key thing to remember when we look at these areas is that we look at these as potential reversal entry opportunities. Let me say that again, potential reversal entry opportunities. But the key is, how do I take profits, right? How do I take profits? And the key to taking profits on all of these is to look for the opposing fair price value area. And so, you know, we'll talk a little bit more about that when we look at the gold position for today. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So starting on the S&P, so looking here on the ES, we're up about 10 this morning, and I'm recording this at about just about 5 a.m. Central Time. And we have an area that we're kind of coming to, which has acted as a bit of a resistance point. I think there's a good chance we're going to break out above here this morning, this resistance point right here. This resistance point that we've hit it once, we've hit it a second time, and we caught that short on it for a little bit of a 2-to-1 yesterday. But there's a chance that we're probably going to go pop through this today, and we would look at this area up here as a potential reversal. Now, if we get higher than this area up here, to me, that would signal the end of this downward move. And why is that? Well, because when I look at the bigger picture on the 4-hour chart, I need to get a higher high and a higher low in order to signal the end of a downward trend, right? A higher high and a higher low, not just a higher high, not just a higher low. I need both. And in order to get a higher high, I've got to get above this area here. Once I get above this area here, I will officially have put in a higher low. As you can see, there's 2 consecutive higher swing lows and a higher high. Now, I'm using the 4-hour chart for this. And why am I using the 4-hour chart? The 4-hour chart is an excellent indicator that can allow me to react a bit quicker than the daily. All right, I can react a bit quicker than the daily, but I'm also not making it on minute moves. If I'm simply using the daily chart, then I have lower highs and lower lows. Not there yet, but I want to use the 4-hour chart because it gives me a little bit better reaction time. And for those of you that that want to get back in on this bullish trend, then that might be a potential. Good entries are going to come in after that, because that's going to act as kind of a confirmation. I want to wait for a little bit of a confirmation before I'm, on a longer term investment scale. However, on a smaller time frame, I'm good for either longs or shorts. We're far enough off the all-time high to take shorts, and we've moved up high enough to take longs as well. So what are some of the longs I'm looking at? Well, we did break out in the overnight hours, and I was I was looking at a potential breakout to the upside before I kind of put my head on the pillow last night after I watched the flying tomato. I guess he's past the flying tomato days. After I watched Shaun White in the Olympics win a gold, which was actually kind of cool. But I put my head on the pillow last night thinking, well, we may get a breakout in the overnight hours. And I didn't put the long on. But I would be okay if, frankly, somebody decided to put a long right now based on where we currently are trading. But you would do it on a candle-to-candle style. So looking at this on a candle-to-candle style, because we broke out above this area here, this 2670 was really a potential breakout point as we got higher lows here, roughly the same highs. So you could get above this 2670. I think there's room to run because I do believe that this is gonna eventually get blown through, and so I think there's room to run all the way up to 2700. So if you wanted to take a long, it's a great opportunity now, especially on more of a candle to candle style. And we don't have a higher high yet, but you could have a breakout long just above 2674. If indeed that fits your particular risk style. And hopefully I'll have this video out before we get there, for those of you that happen to catch this thing pretty early in the day. Next, Nasdaq. So looking here at the Nasdaq markets, let me open this bad boy up. So looking at the Nasdaq markets, we can see that we have higher swing highs on the hourly time period. So this Nasdaq market is definitely outperforming the S&P just a little bit over the last couple of days. And so we are kind of in the same boat on the Nasdaq, where we are coming to this area here, which could act as resistance. And once that resistance is broken, then there's room for it to run a bit higher. So we're sitting right in that resistance area now. So I think we're kind of at a pretty important inflection point right now. I think that there is potentially a little bit of stall and hold off, waiting on the on some inflationary numbers as they come out. You know, if we get numbers today that say that inflation is under control and that it's not as big of a deal, we may see a little bit of a pop. If we see inflationary numbers that disappoint, we may see a little bit of a pullback. So ultimately, we could be range bound for a little bit of time. But you know, it feels like a return to normal. I saw a really good tweet yesterday that had talked about how a lot of these VIX options that are expiring are, you know, it signals the end of this this prolonged, you know, blip, if you will, which was algorithmically driven based upon some VIX things. So keep some of those ideas in mind as you are looking at your longer term positions. But for shorter term opportunities, I think you've got, you know, plenty of opportunities, both long and short. So I'm going to use this area here. I think if we do get a retest back into this area here, it's going to be worth a look at it in the Nasdaq. I don't know if we will get a retest of this area here today, but I think this one gives you a good entry if we do get a pullback into that range. You know, maybe those numbers come out a little disappointing, pulls us back into here. You could get an entry to rally a bit higher. Crude oil. So here's crude. Crude, yesterday I talked about a breakdown below this line, and we did indeed get that breakdown. So I'm not sure if any of you were able to catch this crude short. So this one is still running. If you're in this one, I would take your stop now, move it down below the last pivot high. So that should move your stop to break even. So the crude trade is running as that short is continuing on its way down. So nice one. Gold. Let's take a look at gold. So gold, we met entry on our level, and then price came down almost immediately. We look at the fair price value area that's opposing. So what do I mean by opposing? Well, if this is an area where we believe that there's was a fair price area, and it was a fair price area because price didn't really go anywhere before a very strong drop. In that period of time, buyers and sellers felt like this was a fair price. They believed that this was a good time to transact. And then all of a sudden we ran out of one of those groups, and the group we ran out of was buyers, because nobody else was willing to pay this price. There were still sellers in that area. People wanted to sell, and so our assumption is that when price gets back here, they're going to sell again. Now, when they sell, it's going to drop the price, and it did. It dropped the price, but it dropped the price into the area, into another fair price value area where buyers and sellers were equal. Before then, price rallied it back up. So, you know, this turned out to be a pretty small little move, but that little move there could have been your trade amount. So that one worked out for a little bit of a profit. Now, for some of you, that may not be enough of a move to be willing to take it. I'm okay with 2-to-1 trade opportunities, 1.5 to 1, even 1 to 1 on certain occasions based upon the setup. But it doesn't make it great for that set it and forget it. Just, you know, set your buttons and walk away. I do like to set alerts and look at these things as they kind of come into the areas. If I've got an alert set up, it's going to give me a good idea of really what can happen. So looking at this I want to look at this on a slightly bigger time period. And the reason I want to look at it on a slightly bigger time period is this, as this is continuing to march up. This is a 4-hour chart. And on this 4-hour chart, you can see that we've got a little bit of fair price value area here before a drop. Price came back up into this region. It's already hit it one time. But I think that this looks to me like we've got a lot of room to run back up. Looking at it on the daily, we had talked about how there was still some room. Now, the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is that we definitely have a reversal candlestick right now on the daily chart. So this is a reversal candle. We have a lower low and a lower high. So just keep in mind on this one here. So looking at longer term, you know, this may continue indeed roll over, especially if we see strength in the equity markets continuing. All right, let's go to our bonds and our currency markets. So the bond market, I had spoken yesterday about how we had a little bit of a wedge. It wasn't a perfect wedge, but there was potential for a breakout for an intraday trade, and lo and behold, we got a little bit of a breakout. That's coming back down in the overnight hours as we're coming back down into it. So got that little bit of a breakout for a short-term opportunity, and that's really what those breakouts are really good for. Kind of coming down out of them. Now we have this area right up in here. As a potential area, but I'm not a huge fan of the setup. And then the other thing that I'm not a huge fan about this is that we came down out of it and then went right back into it and then fell again. So this would not be an area that I would consider using a second time around because of that long wick. 2 candlesticks after that area was created. If you can see that long wick right there, kind of pierced up into it, and now we're continuing to fall. So bonds are falling this morning, and those look like they're going to continue to fall. There's really not a lot of great stopping points to keep it from going down. So how do I get in on this thing, right? You know, fear of missing out. Don't want to miss out on my opportunity. Well, there's not a huge I'll call it entry signal on here, and I don't want to try to just jump in and ride this thing as it's going down until I've got a reason to do so. So I would need some sort of a rally back up into one of these areas, but bonds are falling pretty hard right now on the hourly chart, a lot of momentum to the downside. The Aussie, so the Aussie dollar kind of continuing its rally, although we've kind of stabilized and based a little bit. Not a whole lot going on here, and there's not a lot of good areas here for reversals or for breakouts. So I'm gonna hold off really on pretty much anything in the Aussie. The euro, so the euro I had set up for a potential, and price came into here and then blew right through. So this one did not work out. I'm gonna remove this area here. The euro we were unable to hold on to that. That looked like a pretty good reversal opportunity, but it just didn't come to fruition. Price came into it, blew right through it. So I would look a bit lower right now for potential buy point. And the reason I'm going to look a bit lower for a buy point is that I love the area here which acted as resistance in the past, which may in the future be a good long and a good entry opportunity. Canadian dollar. So the Canadian dollar, we're still not able to get above our breakout long. We've got a breakout set up in here, and the Canadian it's just teasing us. It's just teasing us. That's okay. We'll still leave the trade in. That breakout long. The more that we hit it, the better I like it actually. So let's leave that breakout long in place. Remember, on a breakout, our entry occurs at the breakout, and our stop goes below the last pivot before the breakout. All right, last but certainly not least, looking at our nat gas. So let me pull up our nat gas. I analyze nat gas. I will tell you, I am not a nat gas trader. It's not something that I do very often. I really just analyze the areas of demand and supply based upon what the chart is telling us. And what I see here is this area, which was acting as this is a breakout short area right through here, which could act as a reversal point coming back up. So if we get a touch back into this region, this could be a good short coming back into this area right through here. So keep that area in mind for those of you that do trade nat gas, because I always look for the retests of those breakout areas. Great British Pound. We do have an area coming up in here that, I looked at it earlier in the week. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I actually like the fact that we've kind of come near-ish to it. I'm going to use ish. And then fallen away. If we get a decent arrival into here with any sort of momentum, this could actually be a pretty good reversal opportunity. No real good breakout opportunities on it yet. Japanese yen. So on the Japanese yen, we got our breakout hit in the overnight hours as price broke out above. Now remember, on the breakout, our stop's going to have to go below here, so fairly wide stop. Let's see how that breakout holds. as we continue to kind of move from here. But did get the breakout entry on the Japanese yen, kind of above that area. So that being said, I'm going to turn this thing over for the day. I hope everybody has an absolutely amazing St. Valentine's Day and spend some time with somebody you love. Although my wife tells me if I need a holiday to tell you I love you, then I've done something wrong throughout the rest of the year. So hope everybody has a great day, a profitable trading day. If there's something I can do for you, please send me an email, chuck@iiefinancial.com. Until tomorrow, I will see you soon. Thanks.